Not bad. How are you?
I'm doing great. We're live on YouTube and a whole bunch of other social media platforms today. Been a while since we've talked. Hope you're having a great day today.
Well, I see you wearing green. The closest I have is that tree behind me.
Hey, you know what? UPI is green right now.
That's good. That's good. That's great, man. You have these things all lined up. That's great. UPI's green.
Well, you know what? It's one of those things where we've got the community. They're constantly sharing ideas with me. I'm sharing ideas with them,
Yeah.
and they're telling me that UPI just spiked. It looks as though they're up to 38 cents right now. I might be a little bit on a delay, but I see it at 38 cents, up 8%. So good timing to come on the show. You
Yeah,
haven't
that's
been here
great.
for a while.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of people asking what's going on with UPI. And there's a lot of questions here from the community. And I got some questions as well that I wanted to go through. Should we go through some of the community questions first, or would you like me to go through some of my questions first?
Well, I'm going to say the community first, but
Sure.
please, whatever questions you think. Obviously, you see the questions coming in. Wherever you think are relevant, ask away.
Okay, let's do this. Let me go through my questions first, and then we'll go
Sure.
through the community so we can get everyone who has a question in the community, guys, put it in the chat. We'll do our best to go through it. And then I'm
Yeah.
going to go through some of our questions first.
Wonderful.
Pretty huge news today. Jerome Powell announced no interest rate spike until 2023, and the market's just exploded, like
Yeah.
everything, including Bitcoin, which is so weird. Seems like Bitcoin's tied into everything right now, but I'm not going to complain. I'm happy that the market's doing well. So first question I have for you, Frank, is been a while since I've been on the show. And why don't you tell us a little bit about what's been happening with UPI, Universal PropTech, since you've been on the show last?
That's great. I'll try to make it quick. So we've made this investment in Iceberg, right? So we made this investment in Spotlight 19, this under 20-second COVID test for about $1 a test. So Iceberg has come out with more details on that. So we've made that investment. We're talking to them pretty much every day about different things that are being planned on the rollout and the different discussions of how the big reveal will occur shortly. I think at this point, we're probably talking within sort of a week to 2 week window. There's a few other things outside of everyone's control that we're working on. So Iceberg's been big for us. That is huge. A really big part of our attention is on Iceberg. In fact, I think a lot of what we're focused on outside of the organic growth, which I'll talk to you about, is really, we need to make that really have value for everyone. And we're working every day to make sure, while people might not be taking our word for what it is we've done and what we've invested in and what they're about to do, that's a really big part of our attention. And we want to help sort of monetize that, really bring that value back for everyone involved. So that's a big part of our attention. So there've been some updates on that. Second thing is we're really focused on taking everything we've done in the last quarter or so on the indoor air quality, on the different germicidal UV technologies, ionization, surface testing. It's really taking a lot of that. We've hired a few sales people and organizations to assist us. We've started knocking on more doors. We've briefed our team and got them engaged on the new approach, the new process of how we're going to scale that. So that's underway. That's finally out there. So that's great. Making proposals for school boards and various organizations, lining up additional advisors and possible board members and people who will be quite critical to our ability to open up the right doors at the right speed. So there's a lot of things on the go. Getting our documents ready to enable us to lock up organizations like provinces, cities, campuses, school boards, so that we could, pre-lock them up and give them an advantage for signing now. An expression of interest to procure Spotlight 19. So we're quite busy. Sales is taking up a lot of my time, which it should. And today we had a great announcement, David Barry. So David Barry's a bit of a celebrity in the traders market. People who understand his story know what he's capable of, and we're quite excited to have someone like him who, after listening to our story, listening to what we have in Iceberg, has said, I'm all in. What do I need to do? And I will use all my contacts, relationships to really help drive the value in this. And then today, really the news of the day, that's pretty exciting, is look, what's happened the last few weeks. We've now raised another over $600,000 of cash coming in from exercise warrants and options, which is great. That's always exciting. It's good. It's one way for people to to demonstrate confidence in what we're up to and what we're doing. And ultimately, it left us with very little debt left of that initial $1 million debt note. And as of yesterday, Chris called that debt. And so we'll see if this individual converts. It'll be gone shortly. Yes.
Wow. No debt.
And people wonder, what do you do? Why do you want to have a debt-free company? Because as any of you know,
wonder why.
There's no need to go raise cash right now. We've got cash. We're EBITDA positive. We've got cash. We've even made some investments, and we're debt-free. It means when the opportunity arises that we can make some additional investments and maybe do need some more cash, it certainly does not have to be of the dilutive kind. And we can be a bit more strategic for how we do that and really get the real value from Iceberg in the lift of our company and value it is today. So I think it's pretty exciting. That's it.
That's a lot.
In the last few weeks.
First of all,
pretty good.
Why would a company want to be debt free? Well, doesn't everyone want to be debt free?
You know what? Look,
let's be honest. We all want to be debt free,
right? You don't want to be debt free if you have no cash. I get that, right? Why would you rush to get rid of a mortgage and then, oh my God, I can't pay my bills anyways? The fact that we have cash, we've had more cash come in, and we're EBITDA positive. So we certainly have enough to weather the storm of additional working capital, additional investments in the organic side of the business growth, additional, other investments we might be considering that allow us to be, a bit more strategic in certain parts of the business. We have that ability to do that without going to raise more money. That is huge. And I think, it's comparables. Compare us against companies that might have similar revenues and have similar amount of debt, for example. They have other things they have to worry about. We do not. And I think that, again, goes to the confidence of people converting, despite the fact stock's been up, stock's been down, people converting, they're believing in what our story and our plan is. That's pretty exciting.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's just explain why debt is a very big negative in the stock market. Well, the biggest problem in the stock market was when a company needs to raise money, they typically issue shares. And typically, the companies that raise money for companies are using debt instruments, and we call them debt spirals a lot of times. And what happens with companies is they don't get out of debt. They just continue to add more debt. And what happens is it drags the price down because they're constantly issuing shares that the funders are selling to get their money back. If UPI doesn't have that problem, there's no overhang on the stock, which means there's not going to be anyone that's constantly converting in an open market that's liquid to be able to pull their money back. That is huge for the stock. We don't want debt, okay? Nobody wants personal debt. No company wants debt. Nobody actually truly wants debt unless, like you said, you need capital and you have no other way to raise it. So you need to go and get debt. And a lot of companies do that because they have no alternative. The fact that your company's debt free, I think, is huge. I think that's huge for the company moving forward. And the fact that the company's been well capitalized is also huge because that means that there isn't going to be as many people hitting the market selling warrants, right? So that's all out of the way too. So there's this overhang that now is out of the market. And once the market starts to understand that and the investors start to understand that and digest that information, to me, that's very bullish for the stock. Now, another key catalyst that's coming for you guys that I think is going to be huge. I know with our community,
didn't bring that
OTC
up. Yeah.
markets listing.
Yeah.
We've got a huge community. I would say 50% of our community is in America. And I would say, 40% is in Canada and the other 10% is the rest of the world. So most of 50% of our audience is in America. So when you have the largest market in the world for the stock market, America, and you've got the most money hitting the market every day in America, the most influential market in the world in America. When you get the American market able to buy UPI, that's a game changer, right? So for you guys to get that OTC listing, that's going to be a huge catalyst. Any news on that?
Yeah, I mean, the applications are in. I think it's really just a question of, give her a few weeks, give or take days or so. I mean, I think we're looking at possibly early April. Is it earlier? Is it a bit after that? Could go into the second week. We'll see. But all signs look really good. And, I don't think a day goes by that Chris, our CEO, or myself don't receive a text a tweet, something that says, "Are you in the U.S.? When are you in the U.S.?" So we get it, we've heard it. There's a bit of a long look. There's a bit of a longer process to obviously getting on the OTC than say Frankfurt. Frankfurt was fast. I think we submitted it, closed our eyes, woke up, and we had it. So it was a little bit quicker. And so,
you do have a Frankfurt listing now. Then
we do have a Frankfurt listing now. So the Frankfurt
listing.
The
symbol for that?
And the OTC, we'll put a lot more effort to obviously reach the masses and roll out that program. A few weeks, give or take.
Do you know the symbol for your Frankfurt listing?
Frankfurt is 8LH.
8LH. Okay, guys. So we have a Frankfurt listing. So for our community members in Frankfurt, there is now a Frankfurt listing. So that is a huge development since our last call. And the next thing coming will be the OTC listing. And then they will be listed in all three major markets that we focus on: Canada, the United States, and Germany. So right now, UPI is in two major markets: UPI in Canada and 8LH in Frankfurt, Germany. And as soon as the US listing opens, I promise you, everyone that's watching, everyone that's part of our club, you will know first. I promise you. And that's great news. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, no, we're very excited, gearing up for that. But right now we're all in on Iceberg. We're all in on Spotlight 19. Again, every day, I wish we could share more of all the kind of conversations we're having and what's happening. But it's exciting. Can't wait for, what I call the big reveal of having people more aware of who the equity partners are and the funders are and where we're at and how we're doing it. It's really exciting. So it was pretty exciting a week ago for Iceberg to come out and finally, initially it was, well, we'll tell them it's under a minute. You can do a COVID test. And so it was quite exciting for them to finally reveal it's actually under 20 seconds. So that was huge compared to, compared to what is already over 15 minutes. Under 20 seconds, you can open up arenas, airports, everything, restaurants, fitness clubs. What a day here in Toronto, where we're still talking about not opening up fitness clubs, not opening up restaurants, and opening up a lot of things where you can actually stay indoors. We're really excited to hopefully in a few months be able to say, actually, here's a Health Canada approved solution, and we can now open the economy. Never mind just Canada, globally. So it's still pretty exciting. Can't wait for everyone to get to the same level we're at in the excitement.
It's so huge because I'm a huge sports fan, and I don't know if you've been watching what's happening with the Toronto Raptors, but they haven't had enough players to play.
Yeah,
they've been losing games because of COVID protocol and COVID tests. They don't have enough players to play. They're losing all these games. All their star players are out because it's taking too long to test. So if they had UPI.
Yeah. Well, it's also, I think at the heart of it is, and the US, they talk about it, certainly talk about it here, is there needs to be a better rapid testing play because look, if you haven't figured it out, even after you get the vaccine, the economy is not exactly opening as planned and not everything is opening up. There's still going to be issues with variants, with is everyone vaccinated? So, I think there's going to be a big part of the strategy will have to be rapid testing. And so we're looking to have a really big role in that. And then even beyond this year, this thing isn't going away anytime soon. So to have something that can stand the test of time and be able to detect not just COVID today, but COVID what it looks like a year from now, the flu and other viruses that present themselves in your blood, that'll be pretty exciting to open up a lot of facilities. So
yeah, when the Fed decides they're not going to increase rates until 2023, I think that kind of tells you where they think the market's going to be for the next couple of years.
Yeah, obviously that's huge for small cap. I think everyone connected these, expenditures coming out of government and great for small business. Of course, it's great, and I think at some point it becomes a question of which ones are the best ones float to the top, right? Which are the ones that are really going to make it? And so that's icebergs float, but those are things that we're going to continue to focus on.
Now, the last time we discussed the amazing tech, you guys announced Spotlight. Any updates on how this is coming along in regards to getting it to market?
Yeah, again, we don't want to steal the thunder away from Iceberg, and they will have an update in, literally it's contingent on a few things within about a week to 2 week range. There will be a big announcement by them on, and you'll learn way more on testing and what they're up to in the processes they've been involved in, right? So, red light on that. So it's exciting what they're doing. And it's also what comes with that is the announcement of some of the equity partners and the funders. And again, I call it the big reveal because look, they're a private company, right? So we're excited every day. We want to tell the world what we're up to. And so we're managing that. And every day we're talking to them, and every day we're adding our value beyond just getting our markets ready and talking. I just had a conversation with a province a few minutes ago, and having a conversation about, lining them up to have an announcement where they want to come on board to sign this up. So, there's a lot of fun things going on. It's just in time, right? And so people get anxious. Yeah, we're anxious every day, but it just means when it finally comes out, we have the big reveal of a lot of these details. I think, everyone can finally say, oh, okay, it wasn't just them saying this. This is coming from these other parties and their due diligence and who they are and what they bring to the equation. So we're really excited. And we've known for a while who everyone is. We just can't wait for that to be revealed.
You mentioned David Barry. So let's talk a little bit about David Barry and what do you think he can bring to the company? While I was getting ready to go live, a member said, David Barry joining the team is huge. Can you explain why this is so huge and what exactly this means for UPI and maybe a little bit of the history of David Barry?
Yeah, so David Barry, I don't think I could do his history justice, but he was probably the biggest trader ever in Scotiabank and probably in Canada of the day, and what he accomplished. So he was it was quite amazing what he did. And, there's interesting stories online. You should look them up on why ultimately he wasn't at Scotiabank any longer. And ultimately he won a pretty long battle lawsuit and won, it was $150 million lawsuit. So, it's so that says a lot about what he was, how valuable he was and ultimately what had happened at Scotia. But he went off and made his own investments and has several active investments at the moment. I think the key for us is, so we have a seasoned individual who at certain levels is quite active, has tremendous relationships and contacts of a lot of the types of businesses and sort of investment opportunities that we're going to be interested in, and access to obviously investors and others at various stages. So I think, for us to have an arsenal and to have a toolkit, right, where we can use his capabilities and his abilities. And he's point blank said to us, and I know it's in his quote, where he will open up any doors he can and use his relationship and his Rolodex. I'm going back to a very old terminology, Rolodex, and help us with whatever the relationships are and the resources we need to help grow our company. And particularly, he's fascinated with Iceberg and what this opportunity is. So we're excited to have him there and to have an ability to tap into him. So I think that's going to be huge for us. And not that everyone else we already have. Bob Daniels, I've known for a number of years, and his ability to tap into certain markets, certain families and individuals and investors and people who own real estate assets, it's quite significant. So we continue to sort of build out this super team, right, of people who give tremendous access and allow us to reach the next level as a business. So I think that's just part of that. It's a very critical part. It's a good one.
That's great. Now, in order for UPI to get to the next level, you need to get institutional investors. Now, I'm sure bringing on someone like David Barry can help with that. What's your plan to start bringing institutional investors into Universal?
I think, it's not like right now, we get that eventually a good sign of success is that when you manage to bring in institutional investors, we get that. It's a bit more of not an end game, but it's certainly a great metric to have at some point where, we've achieved a certain success and we've accomplished that. And right now, I think the bigger focus is, once we make people aware of what Iceberg is, what it will be as a game-changing technology and company globally. This is going to change the way things are done for I guess forever, but certainly for generations. And I truly believe that. I think, we're focused on a few things that we're focused on. And what comes with that, what comes with getting a lot of the information out, including the big reveal, are things like, have our daily averages gone up in trading volume? Yes, they have. And, we've had some ups and downs, and so has the market. So I think, what gets institutional investors would be, let's see some pretty steady numbers in there on the average volume going up. Let's see some pretty diverse investors in there, so it's not so tightly held, which I know it's it's a kiss of death almost, right? It's great to be tightly held, but as soon as you want to start monetizing some of that or exchanging with other investors, it's not so easily managed well. So I think the more investors we bring in, the broader ownership we have, the broader globally we have investors in it, the higher we're trading every day, the higher volumes, the more news and information coming out on our sales, on our success, on our investments, all that's going to play into that. I think, to me, that's really what we ultimately want to achieve. Is I want to get institutional investors to say, I'm taking a stake in this and I'm writing this out. And what comes with institutional investors isn't the day traders. It's a little different. And so we appreciate a lot of that, what that comes with. But it's certainly part of the objective is to get there. So I'm not too sure how fast we get there. I think a lot of that is really how successful we can be in the coming few months, few quarters. But I think we're on our way.
Absolutely. And just to keep this in perspective, when we first identified UPI, guys, it was at 19 cents. I believe it's around 38 cents now. So it's up 100%. Yes, it went to 75 and it came down from 75. 75 is what we would consider now the all-time high. So as a trader, you got to be able to identify the low, you got to identify the high, and ask yourself, where is it right now? And ask yourself, do you see the upside in this company? And if you do, when do you want to buy it? And what we like to do here at Rich TV Live is we like to teach our community, when a stock is dipping, that's the best time to buy it. And then when it's ripping, if you don't want to hold long, nothing wrong with taking profits. So for a lot of our members that got in early, under 30 cents, when we first started talking, some of them have already taken profits. Some of them are holding long-term. And I'm not here to tell you what to do, nor can I, because I'm not licensed. But it's important as an investor to always make sure that if you're in on a trade and it's green, try not to let it go red. This is something I always like to teach our investors. If you're in on a trade and it's green, never let it go red. And this is why. If it's green and you take profits and then it goes down, you can always buy it again. And now you've got your original investment plus the money that you made from the market to buy more shares on the dip. And then when it goes back up, because this is a growing company, chances are it's going to continue to move up over time. You can then lock in your profits. So UPI has already been a big success story for our community. A lot of members have already done extremely well. And the reality is the stock is up since we started talking, despite the fact it's come down from the all-time highs, just like all stocks do. So I want to go through a couple of questions here from the community. Please. This is from I Am Pip Girl Stock Talk. For Frank, what is the anticipated timeline or limitations, further product testing, health approvals, etc., facing Spotlight 19 tech before it can reach markets for business use, etc.? I know you touched on that a little bit. Any kind of estimate?
Yeah, I think I said this the first time we made the announcement. Certainly, what we know right now, if we work backwards, we know that we're about within a week to 2 weeks, and for certain reasons outside of everyone's control, but we're within a week or 2 weeks of Iceberg coming out and announcing, more details around the testing, various testing approvals, trials, and things that are about to take off or are underway. So we know that there's that window of an opportunity to discuss with people the process that we're involved in. I think the next part is, when we made this investment, we looked out and thought, there's no point in making an investment in a COVID-related solution that misses COVID. Okay, so did we do this thinking or believing that the solution will be out next year for approval? Of course not, because what would be the point of that really? So certainly the expectation is still. Other than about, it sounds like from where we were at, about a 2-week delay that's occurred to date, and that's baked into the numbers I'm talking about. We're still in process to, within a few months, give or take, have what we need to really go to market hard. So it's complicated, and you probably know of other companies, publicly traded companies, that have gone hard and heavy and made a lot of predictions and things, and then what happened? They didn't get their Health Canada approval. And so, it's not a process you want to take too lightly. And so we have people in Iceberg who are taking it extremely seriously and making sure that, everything is done in a manner it needs to be done. And we're not cutting any corners, and we're making sure that everything is being lined up accordingly. So, I personally feel we're still in that range of a few months to have the, hopefully to be able to go to market with a commercialized approved product. So that's still the time frame. We'll see how quickly. So I'll give you some sense of what affects some of that. I'm not so worried about the Health Canada approval, the emergency approval when you're finally given it. If you followed all the steps you had to follow in order to get to that point, that's that. There's a process to it. But in the end, it's a fairly, if you've done it all right, it's a fairly quick approval process. You demonstrate your figures, you demonstrate the effectiveness of what it is that you've done. So that's a fairly quick process, actually. You get into trouble when you didn't do all the steps properly, right? So, we're taking a lot of precautions and we're doing it right. So I think some of what goes into what further delay, if it's earlier or later, on some of that have things to do with, so if we're testing, say, hundreds of people in certain locations, right, which would be the expectation, multiple locations, we're testing them alongside, as we've already stated, PCR tests and maybe antigen tests and other types of tests that allow us to validate. If we're teaching it, wait, who's positive, who's not? We need to know from a PCR test who is positive, right, and who's not. And so we're comparing the information, then we're learning from it. So part of the success of the speed of this will be based on if we're testing hundreds of people, and in the batch of hundreds of people, like it's doing a focus group. If everyone you get are all conservative or all liberal when you do a focus group, then it's not gonna help too much. You're gonna have to then extend it and get more people in who help you have a fairly diverse look of people, of ages, of symptomatic, asymptomatic, negative. And so as long as we get the right batch in there, which there's obviously expectations of, if you're in certain places, you'll get more likelihood of hitting those types of numbers. That's the key, right? So we have groups that will be traveling from certain places when they can reveal all this. And the goal is to make sure we're not just getting all these, negative people. Negative people don't help us teach the system. They'll help teach it who's negative. They won't help teach it who's positive. And that's what we ultimately want to do right. So the length of time it takes, whether it's 2 months or say 4 months, is really more contingent on the people that we are testing, the makeup of them. So again, here we are in Ontario, in Toronto, for example, we're going through effectively a third wave. More variants are out there causing numbers to spike again. So do I think we'll have difficulty finding people? Not particularly, but it's the places that we're doing the testing. You need to have your right percentage of those people in order to teach the system. So that was a long way of saying, I think we're a few months away, which is what we originally thought. So I think we're still in the right time frame. And then the process or the approval that comes from Health Canada is not a long one. It's actually quite a quick one if you've done everything right. And I'm really proud of the guys at Iceberg for not getting ahead of themselves and paying close attention to the processes to get this done right.
I have a question from D. Han. First, he says, great job for getting David Barry on your advisory board. I agree with that. The question is, and you don't have to answer this, he's just kind of putting it out there.
Sure.
What is the accuracy rate for Spotlight 19, if you're allowed to discuss?
So, I'll discuss the obvious, right? So this is part of what ultimately, if you think of every time you go in for approval, it's the accuracy of what it is you're putting in front of Health Canada for approval. And so if you think of it this way, we're teaching, the machine learning is learning off the back of a PCR test, right? Yeah. So what you're going to be teaching the pupil, it can't be any better than the teacher, right? So if PCR is going to be what we use to teach, to mirror what our abilities are to say yes or no. So that's the first objective, is to accomplish that, right? So that's, that's something that's being done, right? That's happening. But then if you understand machine learning, you also understand, but once you've done that, then the ability is, well, wait a second. There are so many other analytes, so many other thousands of analytes within your blood that you're able to take pictures of, identify through this beam of light, this technology. So you can start teaching your system to be better than the actual subject that taught it. So, this is just pardon the pun, but the tip of the iceberg, okay? This is really exciting of what they're doing and how they're going about it. So, and it's well beyond just COVID. So as that plays out, it's being taught on the back of PCR tests. But there's absolutely opportunities for it to learn even better than that. But let it prove out, let it show in the data that it collects and it analyzes and learns from people who take the PCR tests and who take similar tests that it teaches from or learns from. So that's one way to look at it. So again, and I've said this before, and it's interesting. You don't have to be, so if you've got a 15-minute test, if you got a 15-minute COVID test at the moment, and say it's not so accurate, right? 15-minute test, not so accurate. A lot of moving parts, a lot of material you need, and it's more than say a few bucks a unit for that alone. And we're able to do it in a fraction of that time with not usable. You don't need usable parts to it, right? And you don't need consumables. And we can do it in under 20 seconds. And we can match that accuracy or better, right? Or we're not being compared to the 100%. We're being compared to what currently exists in the marketplace. So those are some of the complexities when you're trying to teach it something that's not the most, not the best solution, not the best efficiency to begin with. So those are some of the complexities of doing this, but it's absolutely doable. And the expectation is, and I'll let them talk about it. It will be what it is, but it's always going to get better from what it is. So it's just a question of when they're ready to say, hey, we like what we've got. We put in a black box. We run our clinical trials, and Health Canada, here you go. We'll see what that ends up being. That's not something I can speak to at this point.
Okay. And a question from Dehan as well. Possible Lumen Ultra deal with Billy Bishop Airport like it is in Pearson Airport?
So, Lumen Ultra has a number of different tests that they can do, and we've secured, we have a right to sell their surface testing, and so we're taking their surface testing to our customers and new prospects and pushing that. So I'm not too sure what Lumen Ultra itself is doing. They're a Canadian company. They could be doing that. I think we're quite confident in the way that we've partnered up with Iceberg and what it is we're doing. We're quite confident that that becomes a great sort of row to hoe to sort of take solutions to market. And there's a few other things we're working on. So I'm not too sure what Lumen Ultra itself is up to. We know we have some kits and we're looking to take it to market for ourselves as a service provider. So I'm not too sure what they're up to specifically.
Okay, great. Well, those are pretty much all the questions. We've gone through a lot of the questions ourselves as well that maybe would have been duplicates. I've got a couple more questions for you before we say goodbye.
Sure, please.
Thank you so much for your time today. And I know that the members that have been watching really enjoyed this interview. If there was one thing that you would want shareholders to know today about UPI, what would it be?
We've bet big on Iceberg. We're going to see it through. And we're going to help monetize that for everyone involved in this company and make sure that not only on our behalf, but even on behalf of Iceberg. Remember, we benefit from the lift and the value that comes out of Iceberg. We benefit greatly from that, in addition to the revenues and the lift in our own company. That is a really big focus for us, in addition to our underlying businesses. So, I think we've bet big, we know it, and we're not just letting it, we're not just sitting back. We're quite active every day on making sure that that becomes a quite significant investment. And we just want to make sure people understand that.
And we're not trying to flood your inbox, but if someone wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Email's the best, either Chris Hazelton, the CEO, or myself. In our email, it's so F as in Frank, last name Carnevale, at universalproptech.com, or Chris Hazelton, first letter, first name, last name, at universalproptech.com. Anytime. In fact, we love hearing from investors. We regularly take calls. We took a few today, and every week we take several calls from investors or potential investors and help them better understand our story and our narrative. It's different. We get it, right? We're taking this conventional, traditional, mechanical and control services business, and we're turning into something really exciting that any traditional investor in those types of businesses would say, what? Like, that's not sexy. We're making it sexy, and we're really trying to become a quite significant investment platform, right? So beyond just what we're talking about, which can sort of de-risk your investment, we're looking at how do we make some really interesting bets that makes us all quite significant value, and that's what we're doing.
That's great. Thank you so much for your time, Frank Carnevale, the Chief Growth Officer of UPI, Universal PropTech. They now have a German listing, Canadian listing, waiting for an American listing. So we get everybody involved and create more visibility for the company. If you're not winning, you're not watching. We brought you UPI first. Like I said, it's up over 100% since we first started talking about it. It's been up hundreds of percent at its peak. If you guys like the video, please smash the like button, comment down below, share the video, and subscribe. Remember, Rich TV Live is strictly for education and entertainment purposes. Always do your due diligence, do your research, consult a financial advisor before you invest in anything that we talk about here on Rich TV Live. Thank you, Frank, for joining us today.
No, thank you, Rich. Looking forward to the next time as well. We'll have a lot of fun the next few weeks.
Absolutely. Next couple of weeks are going to be great, guys. A lot of catalysts coming. Thank you guys for watching and have a great day.